Hello and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Annabelle Shackleton, and today the topic of our webinar is all about health and safety. We thought we'd start with a few of these quotes on screen that just show you some of the help and support that farmers have. We know that health and safety, rightly so, is an area of concern for some people who are taking part in Open Farm Sunday. But as you can see from the quotes, we provide a lot of support to our farmers. The quote top left says our first thoughts were, oh my God, but in actual fact, it was fairly straightforward. So for all farms who register for Open Farm Sunday, they'll receive a handbook with lots and lots of detail about this. But hopefully today's webinar will help guide you through the process. So as I say, today's topic is health and safety, and we don't want it to overshadow your Open Farm Sunday event. So I'm Annabelle Shackleton, and with me is Tabitha Salisbury, and not Tilly today, but Tilly's of course part of the team. So, first topic.
We're going to start with the essentials, which we went over in our webinar on Monday if you were watching, but just a few things. So the idea of Open Farm Sunday, we want you to showcase good farming practices, which I'm sure most of you do all day, every day anyway. You need to inform your insurance company that you're opening up for Leaf Open Farm Sunday with a minimum of 5 million public liability. You'll find majority of you do have this cover, but do just check. And if you're running track and trailer rides, I think you need to double check cover on that one as well. You'll have to complete a risk assessment before your event. We'll have more on this later on in the PowerPoint, but we do provide a template for you. And just need to ensure that your health and safety arrangements are in place and you adhere to them, and everyone else that is helping you and on site adheres to them too. And of course, hand washing is major, and especially if you have livestock or are serving food. So our Leaf Open Farm Sunday handbook, you will receive a copy once you have registered. It will come in the post. This has all sorts of useful information, but it also has all the health and safety information you could possibly need in it. So please do refer to this as and when you need to. And it also, as I just said, has that risk assessment template.
So one of the first things that you need to bear in mind is that if you're a small family farm, you may not do a whole farm risk assessment. But just to make it clear for smaller farms, if you're hosting an Open Farm Sunday event, that all of your helpers and volunteers are considered as an employee as far as health and safety law is concerned. So you need a risk assessment for your Open Farm Sunday event, but if on the day there are more than 4 helpers, so that's staff, helpers and volunteers, you actually need to have the essential health and safety requirements, which are written down. You will need your farm risk assessment, your health and safety policy, and your COSH risk assessment. Now, these are key policies that all farms with more than 4 employees require. So the majority of Open Farm Sunday events will have these, but that's just to make that clear. In the handbook, we've got some guidance on where you can go to on the health and safety website. They have templates for those 3 documents that are required. So the first topic is hand washing, which is very topical at the moment. And here are the basics, and I've got lots of photographs and top tips to share with you. But the basics are clean running water. Cold water is acceptable. It does not have to be hot water for a June event, so an event, a one-off event in the summertime. But it's running water, not washing up bowls or buckets of still water. We need liquid soap, paper towels and a bin to provide them, to put the dirty towels in. No cotton toweling towels. I know from an environmental perspective, it's very tempting to put out toweling towels, but it is not acceptable. You must have throwaway paper towels. And Antibacterial gels are not an alternative to hand washing, so and should be avoided. So hand washing with clean running water, and as we all know from the news, it's great to encourage people to sing something like the basic lines of Happy Birthday twice. You need to wash your hands for about 20 seconds. So the previous slide had a few photographs of a setup on a farm. You know, some people do actually hire in these facilities. The picture on the left is a facility that you can hire in. I know in Wales and in some rural areas, they actually have local communities have come together and actually bought hand washing facilities to share with the local community. And so you may actually be able to borrow them, but you don't have to do that. There are some great examples of farmers who've actually just been really inspirational and actually set up their own systems. Two photographs on the left, open farms. These are all Open Farm Sunday events, and they're just great. Simple container to hold the water, taps attached to pieces of wood, blue piping. You know, good sign there with hand washing, paper towel, liquid soap. Top right, I love that photograph. That's a basic, simple, cheap aluminium sink that the farmers made a wooden frame for it to stand on, and there we've got liquid soap, paper towels and a sign. And of course, top right in that photograph is a volunteer, a helper, and that's really important as well. So not only do you need to provide the hand washing facilities, you need to encourage visitors to actually use it. So have signage and have volunteers helping people. And the picture bottom right, again, a set up, a frame, wooden frame that's been made to hold the sink. And interesting that one's on a pallet. So for younger children, they've got access to it. It's always interesting actually seeing how farms that open a lot to the public do it. And then here's just a few photographs showing how some farm attractions organise their hand washing facilities. But here's a great example. This is a farm down in the southwest in Somerset. They have an area where they cordon it off with barriers. You can see from the photographs at the top and on the right that the hand washing facilities are temporary. The farmer has brought in blue piping, taps, a receptacle to hold the water. There's drainage there to drain the water off. And then on Open Farm Sunday, the centre bottom photo and bottom left, you can see there's barriers there. So everyone, after going through a livestock area where they've been encouraged and able to touch the livestock, they are funneled through past this hand washing area, and there's a helper there as well, ensuring that everyone who walks through washes their hands with liquid soap, running water and paper towels. So as we said at the beginning, this photograph on the left, you may think that that's adequate as hand washing facilities. Running water is being put into a washing up bowl, there's liquid soap and paper towel, but it is not. That is still water in a washing up bowl, or if it was in a bucket, that does not count. And again, I've put there the hand gel sanitizer on the right. It is no substitute for washing hands, but if you're out touching livestock away from where the hand washing facilities are, then it is an alternative as a stopgap before visitors go back to an area where there are hand washing facilities. So a key part of this, as I just mentioned a second ago, is actually thinking of the layout of your farm. And this little diagram here, which is in the handbook, just shows how you can set up, as an example of setting up an animal contact area where visitors are encouraged to go in through an entrance and come back and come out via the exit, and with temporary barriers set up, and then there are taps, paper towels and a bin. So, and if you've got plenty of helpers and volunteers that make sure that people go in through the entrance and come out and wash their hands as they leave, and that's hugely important. And here's a great example. This is a farm in Peterborough. They set up, they have queues of people. It's a large event. They have queues of people wanting to go through and see the livestock. All the livestock are in pens. The whole area has barriers, so there is a route for farmers, for visitors to walk through. You can see top left, there's a volunteer holding a sheep, allowing visitors to touch it and stroke it. The visitors are not inside the pen with the livestock, which is what is advised. The livestock are in the walkway areas. But then you can see this fabulous hand washing facility. I actually took these photographs. They had a couple of amazing volunteers at the washing facilities, at the exit. And if anyone tried to walk past these facilities, I can assure you they were stopped and they were told to wash their hands. And it's great. And there on the bottom right, you can see that that child is standing on a bale of straw so that they can access the water as well. So simple, so effective. And just thinking about enclosures, I just mentioned that, you know, here are a few examples of different ways to enable people to get close to livestock. On the left-hand side, that's a great example of vets talking about an animal there with the visitors behind the barrier. The people in the photograph top right, they're wearing Wellington boots, which is advised. And as I say, the current advice is to avoid having visitors in the same pen with the livestock. But if you do wish to do that, you need to set up a separate pen away from where the livestock usually are. So you have put down clean bedding, ensure there's no seepage, ensure the bedding stays within the area, and that there's a volunteer or a helper there if you wish your visitors to get up close to the livestock.
So biosecurity, which many of you will do every day without even thinking about it, but obviously it needs to be in place to prevent the spread of disease. Research has shown with us that just under 20% of our visitors go to more than one farm in one day, and obviously a lot of farmers team up with one another. So the basics: visiting stock must be kept physically separate from one another. Footsteps should be positioned so that visitors pass through them between visiting animals and your own animals, so they can't spread disease. Foot baths are recommended at entrance for visitors and people pushing pushchairs, wheelchairs, that sort of thing. And if you're moving livestock on or off farm, even if it's one animal, you need to comply with DEFRA regulations. Passports and that sort of thing need to be updated, and DEFRA needs to know. Same applies to if you're taking animals to market. So just in the bottom right hand corner here, there's an orange box, the golden rule being clean in, clean off. This box is in the handbook, so you can refer to it whenever you need to. Just a few pictures here of how some other people have set up their Open Farm Sunday event. The photo on the left was of an entrance to a farm, making sure visitors walked through a footstep as they went to farm. They then decided this was a bit daunting for the visitor and took it down and went for an approach like the top right hand side, where visitors are walking just through a simple footpath as they enter the farm. Also important that as visitors go off farm, they brush off any mud, anything like that. So for the visitor, it's really important that you inform visitors about biosecurity. You'll find the majority of the public won't realise it's to protect animal health as well as human health. So I think that's a really good talking point for people. You can make that part of your event, talk to visitors about biosecurity. Provide a brush and a hose exit, like I just said, for visitors to clean off farm dirt post-visit. So if they're going to another event as well, they're clean before they turn up at the next farm. Short thing about pregnant women visiting your farm: abortion in sheep obviously is the obvious one, very dangerous to the unborn child and the woman, but other livestock diseases and infections can be dangerous to mother and unborn child. And just a small one on vaccinated livestock: be aware that vaccinated animals can be infectious for up to 8 weeks post-treatment. So just make sure visitors can't touch these animals. They can look at them but not touch them. So here's a few photos of how people set up their event when people are leaving. So hose pipes and brushes are perfectly adequate, and just ensure there's a brush available to brush off pushchair wheels or wheelchair wheels as well, rather than just your boot scrub. Yeah, the boot scrub on the left there's a bit over the top. I've only seen those on one farm where I took those photographs. So, but yes, a hose and a brush is really all that's needed. So next, quite a few events host tractor and trailer rides, and of course there are
things that you need to ensure about this. So some people will hire a tractor and trailer, or have access to one, borrow one, but you can actually set up your own trailer, but it will need to be legal. So there are different ways that you can do this. The trailer must have independent brakes. It must have secure rails around the side, and have the sides filled in with some sort of welded mesh or kickboard. Fixed seating. Bales are acceptable if they are strapped to the trailer bed. So you can set up your own tractor and your own trailer to hold visitors, but there are some key requirements. And in the handbook, there is a link to the ASI health and safety documents. There's a PDF on the Health and Safety Executive website with all the key essentials to actually making your own trailer suitable and secure for visitors. We're not going to go through all the detail now. It is doable. Quite a few host farmers do this for Open Farm Sunday, but please, you must refer to the health and safety document. The other thing is to ensure that the tractor and trailer are in good working order and that they are coupled together securely. Make sure that the driver has undergone suitable training, they're mature and capable of driving a trailer full of your visitors around the farm. And never allow visitors to travel in the cab, stand on the tow bar or sit on the railings. I don't have a photograph, but I did have a complaint from somebody who saw that there were staff sort of swinging off, holding onto the handrail on the back of a trailer and swinging off of it, because they're comfortable with tractors, with trailers, going over bumpy surfaces. But when your visitors are there, it really is good practice to show good practice to your visitors. So make sure that this is done securely in a mature way and safely. And if you're carrying passengers on the road, the requirements are slightly more onerous, and you need to consider how much you are on the road and whether or not you might need a bus driver's licence. But for going around lanes on the fields and through farm tracks, you'll be absolutely fine. And then here are just a couple of no-nos. I know this looks absolutely lovely, just sitting on the back of a trailer on a beautiful summer's day, going through the fields, but this really is bad practice. You must have, as we said a few minutes ago, secure railings, secure bales for people to sit on. They're secure here, but there must be railings around. People must be within the railings. There must be sides to the trailer. So these two photographs, I'm afraid, as idyllic as they look, are dangerous and an absolute no-no.
So a few tips to help you minimise injury. Plan the route to start with. So decide which part of the farm visitors will be able to access. Avoid all cluttered areas, uneven ground and other hazards, so slip hazards, that sort of thing. And keep your visitors away from machinery that's moving.
You can use barriers. Many of our farmers hire in barriers, or just using red and white hazard tape can keep people out of the way of dangerous areas and ensure that people are going to the parts of the farm that you want them to go to. So another one is signage and supervision. Good signage is absolutely necessary for your visitors to ensure that they're going to the parts of the farm that you want to and that you're identifying potential hazards. Clearly mark areas that are not intended for visitors to go to. And a key thing is briefing your helpers. Make sure that before the event commences, all of your helpers and all your staff are aware of the risks, the control measures in place, and what to do in case of an emergency. And here are a few examples of some signs. We do have some signs on the Open Farm Sunday website. Once you're registered, you can access the area and download a whole host of resources, including some signs for you to put up at your event. It doesn't have to be anything complicated, just laminate. Some farmers will laminate them to make them weatherproof, but just have enough signage on hand to sign up areas and give instructions to your visitors. Another thing in the livestock area to think about, as we mentioned before, is just think about the rules that you want to have, but certainly no eating or smoking in areas with livestock. That photograph on the left looks wonderful. Those children are having a fabulous time getting up close to the calf there, but the second child has a lollipop in his mouth. That really is asking for trouble. So please ensure that people don't eat, don't smoke, and keep clean in areas where there's livestock. And the dummy there, just an extra thing to think about. You know, a lot of farms have E. coli and other organisms around the farm, and if a dummy is dropped on the ground, it really should be sterilised before it's put back in the child's mouth. So please be aware of that, make your helpers aware of that, and ensure it doesn't happen.
So hazardous areas on your farm, you need to identify these and take precautions against them. So your spray stores, your slurry pit, your medical stores and your workshops all need to be locked or cordoned off so visitors cannot access them. Keep the visitors away from these areas. And then there's other hazards on farm which you may not necessarily think about. So grain store with deep bins, whether they're full or empty, should also be no-go areas. Crushing hazards around farm, there'll be a lot of them. It's nature of farming. However, heavy items stored in the yard have the possibility of falling, and if there's a child nearby, crushing a child, especially if they're available to be climbed on, etc. So gates, dual wheels, that sort of thing. To make this safe, just simply either remove them from the visitor area, tie them securely, or lie them flat on the ground. And machinery and demonstrations, so you need to clearly mark out your demonstration areas so visitors keep well away from the machinery that's moving. So tape around the edge or secure barriers so people can't get near the moving machinery. Procedures using any hazardous substances, so if you're spraying or fertilising on that day, they should not take place during the event. Save it for after Open Farm Sunday. I know it can be difficult and tempting when the weather's nice. If visitors are allowed to sit on a tractor, that's fine if it's not moving, but you must remove the keys and supervision should be given. Watch for any sharp edges, spikes on combines, cultivation equipment. If they're really sharp or you can't turn them down, then consider removing them or cordoning off.
So first aid is something else that you need to ensure that there's a trained first aider at your event and a first aid kit accessible. As with all health and safety, it should be proportionate to your event. So if it's a small event, a trained member of staff will be fine. But for larger events, we've got several hundred or a couple of thousand people there, please do consider booking British Red Cross, St John's Ambulance, St Andrew's First Aid. And we have actually had a couple of events where the staff, rather than just standing around enjoying the day, if it's a long event, they've actually done simple, basic first aid demonstrations for visitors as part of, so they've actually been a display at the event, but then they've also been on hand so that if an incident occurs, then they're there to help out and support your visitors and staff. So one thing that we said right the way along is make sure that your volunteers and helpers are informed. That's really important. Many of our host farmers will organise a briefing session for visitors prior to the event, whether or not it's an hour before visitors arrive in the morning or the day before or a couple of days before. It's up to you how you do it, but you do need to make sure that volunteers are informed of all the hazards and what the things that you have put in place to mitigate those hazards. So the risk assessment. In the back of the handbook that all registered farms get and available to download on the website, we have our risk assessment, and you must ensure that you complete the risk assessment before your Open Farm Sunday event and ensure it covers all significant risks on the premises. We supply this basic risk assessment. Our host farmers find it really invaluable. It is specifically for an Open Farm Sunday event, but you need to add in pertinent things for your farm and remove anything that's not applicable. So we'll leave it at that with the risk assessment. One of the things to say as well is that some farmers will actually invite a neighbouring farmer to come along and do the risk assessment with the host farmer, because a fresh pair of eyes walking around the route that your visitors are going to go round on Open Farm Sunday may actually just identify a couple of different things that perhaps you hadn't thought of might be a potential hazard. So those are the key things that we're covering in this webinar. So if you have any questions at this point, then please type them in to the questions box on the right-hand side in the panel. As you can see here, we've got the dates. This year's Open Farm Sunday is on the 7th of June 2020, and we've already got our future dates lined up as well. 13th of June 21, 5th of June 22, and the 4th of June in 2023. So we haven't actually got any any questions coming in. Hopefully we've covered everything that you would like to know at the moment. So the last thing that it leaves me to say is a huge thank you to you as all our host farmers. If you have not yet registered your Open Farm Sunday event, please can I encourage you to register your event as soon as possible. As soon as you're registered, you'll get a copy of the handbook. And also we have to thank all of our wonderful sponsors that enable us to produce the free resources, run the website and provide all the support that we give to host farmers. So a thank you to all of our sponsors and to Tabitha for joining us today on this webinar. We hope that you found it useful. If you have any questions at all, please get in touch with the LEAF team and we will do our best to answer them. Thank you.